let's talk about Spirou and Fantasio, a Franco-Belgian comic. These are by André Franquin. There are many writers, starting I think the late 30s and ongoing now. And these are in translation from Cinebook. You can obviously also get them in French. Let's just turn our camera down. So these two, the Marsupilami Thieves and the Wrong Head, are I think of Franquin's run. They are the fifth and eighth books. There are two others in between them, which are translated into English as well: the Rhinoceros Horn and the Dictator and the Mushroom. These are the two I've got. I'm getting more, but these are the two I got anyway. I have some in French as well. You can see for Cinebook there are 5 and 11. This is parallel to the erratic Yokosuno publication order, where for various reasons it's not actually kind of this is the first book, this is the next book. It's just semi random across there. A lot of the Spirou and Fantasio books published by Cinebook are by, I think, Tome and Janry are the authors. So Spirou and Fantasio, this was the Spirou magazine's, let's be honest, it was their equivalent to Tintin in the late 30s. You've got, originally I think the first album's drawn by Gigé. You've got Spirou, and he is an adventurous young man who, with his squirrel Spip, they get into all kinds of mischief. But he's basically a crime fighter, adventurer, investigator in the Tintin mold. And then he has a grumpy journalist friend here, so they're splitting their Tintin roles. But you can see, by the way, he's dressed like a bellhop. I didn't actually, I think, particularly see him being a bellhop. But Fantasio is a grumpy and irascible journalist who is also, goes around adventuring with him and so on. There's a very different vibe in terms of how the adventures start for them compared to Tintin. Tintin, is a journalist who's actively seeking out weird, wonderful stories, trying to deal with crime, adventuring around the world, whereas a lot of stuff kind of just happens in and around these guys and they pick up on it and interfere with it. So we'll just open up here. This is the Marsupilami Thieves. You can see the style is not as Spirou style, Pilot style, big nose, and so on as Asterix or the Smurfs. But you get a bit of that just if you're interested in the art style. It definitely fits that. More cartoony rather than arty, and those are not to be opposed morally. I just mean in terms of how they come across to us is that more cartoony style. You have kind of very vivid, expressive faces on the characters, and a lot of movement and action. And this is obviously to be contrasted, and I've talked about it in some of the videos I've done with Linclair, with the most famous opposing style, mostly famous from Tintin and the Tintin magazine serials, which is more intentionally static with very detailed arty backgrounds. Here you can see you have a lot of quite undetailed backgrounds. You do have cars. Franco-Belgian comics of the mid-century love their cars. But you can see that this is not here mostly selling itself on a sort of high level composition with background and static statuesque figures. This is action. They're playing sports. They're running around. Lies. There's an elephant running around. I mean, you get running around animals in Tintin, to be fair. But yeah, it's a very nice style. I like Franquin's style. I think it's it's lively and expressive, and occasionally, I guess, design-wise, I think you get kind of wobbly character design, just where, by that I mean just there's a lot of characters and eventually some of them don't really seem to, they're not that differentiated. I think it's mostly a quite vivid and adventurous and fun style. There's always different stuff happening. That's one of the obvious things to pick up on, is essentially, it is non-stop in a way. you pick up with some of the more actively adventurous, high pace bande dessin, that it's the idea that something new happens on every page, and part of this comes from being published in magazine form of a page or a number of pages at a time. 2000 AD, the British comic, is a good modern example, actually continuing from the 70s to now. 5 or 6 pages a week, so there always has to be a story that's contained there, even if the graphic novel might be 120 pages in the end, for an epic. This first book is about this Marsupilami, and this is why it was the first Franquin. It's the introduction of one of the more famous elements of Spirou and Fantasio. Initially, it's just Spirou under Gigé. I think Fantasio, may be introduced by Franquin. I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, and Spip is, I think, always there. There's Spip there. But the Marsupilami is a famous part of it, of the crew, and he's a kind of strange South American animal. Obviously, he's a bit jaguar, he's a bit kangaroo, he's a bit monkey. He's got a fun name, Marsupilami. Is he a marsupial? Who knows? And this is basically, there are people who this rare animal they're trying to steal, because he's in a zoo to start with, and there's people trying to steal him. And basically, our heroes get involved in dealing with this rare animal theft. And the Marsupilami comes up in the future, and is important and relevant. Very, very. This is one thing in terms of design. Though I talk about background character design, I end up sometimes wondering which of these characters is it. The main character designs, both colour, basically, Spirou and Fantasio are fairly similarly designed, but Spirou is so often in his costume. Like it's a costume and colour game for the design, and the Marsupilami is an incredibly distinct and lovable design. The wrong head. So again, this is there's a zoo, and then they find out there's some thieves, and they're trying to interfere with all that, and they go travelling to different countries to do this. In here, similarly in the wrong head, there's a bunch of kind of running around and travelling. Here, you get this feels like, and I say this from the French albums as well, is that to some degree there's this reactivity of, oh, we're just at home, and this starts with Fantasio being like, I'm missing some passport photos, and it's driving him mad. And then someone who looks like Fantasio, apparently Fantasio, but Fantasio denies it completely and is furious at this suggestion, it starts doing bad things. And there's obviously a mystery afoot, and you get this kind of, this escalation from the contrast I'm making with Tintin was Tintin. You're like, oh well, Tintin's an adventurer. Apart from in the Castle Fury Emerald, oh, he's travelling somewhere to find something out, or he's on holiday, or he's gone to visit a secret project. He's doing stuff, and stuff happens to him, but that happens to him usually because he starts sticking his nose into things. Sometimes that's actively what the case is. That I'm thinking about, for instance, King Ottokar's Sceptre is. He starts to investigate because the Bordurians are being annoying, basically, in a situation he doesn't have to do anything with. The same with Secret of the Unicorn, but it's that he's sometimes reactive, but he usually is very active in his reactivity, whereas and often is initiating. Whereas here, there's just stuff that starts to wildly happen around them, and because they are bold adventurers, particularly the good-hearted Spirou, they get involved, and then things escalate farcically. That's a big thing. Is there's a strong degree of farce in these books, which is distinct. It's not the same thing as the comedy in Asterix or whatever. Let's have a look at some wrong head thing. And as I say, the sense that just suddenly there's lots of wrong turns and oddities. Hey, more car designs. You can see what I mean, by the way, about the kind of background and the way that composition works. It tends to be quite simple and clean. You get some nice outdoor scenes. I quite like these. But they're not super detailed or super luxurious. They're just quite nice. And a lot of it is quite flat and blank, especially when it's in the interiors. But yeah, I think it's not... For me, it's there's a reason I think that you're the chief adventure book that managed to succeed out of Franco-Belgian comics was Tintin. I think there's a reason for that. In the same way that, there's a reason why for the kind of pure, fairly broad comedy Asterix was the most successful. And Asterix, of course, much more successful, in fact, overall. But I think as a sort of, what else is there in that sort of adventure genre? This feels like a good place to go. And again, you're talking about £8 in English money to get one of these. I liked both of these. I've ordered another one in English. I read the French so comparatively slowly that if I can get the English, I go for it. But the Marsupilami Thieves was the first English one I read. I think the first one I read properly anyway, and is very fun. And I think gives a lot of that sense of the kind of the central characters, the art style of Franquin, and the kind of the standing start to massive farce in 60 seconds thing that's going on in these books. If you've read them, I'd love to know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.